The deep blackness of space surrounded the USS Defiant as it pushed further into the unknown than any human ship had gone before. Captain John Miller stood on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the main screen. After 20 years in space exploration, he still felt a thrill each time they charted new territory. "Captain, long-range sensors are picking up something," said Officer Steve Jones from his station. "It's big, really big." Miller walked over to look at the readings. "Natural formation?" "No, sir." Jones shook his head. "It's moving. And there are smaller objects around it. This is definitely artificial." A hush fell over the bridge. After decades of searching the stars, humanity might finally have found proof they weren't alone. "Alert status yellow," Miller ordered calmly. "Lieutenant, Lisa Wright, report to the bridge immediately." Within minutes, Wright arrived. As the ship's diplomatic specialist, her expertise in first contact scenarios was about to be tested for real, rather than in simulations. "We've got company," Miller told her, pointing to the screen. "About 3 hours away at our current speed." Wright's eyes widened, but her training took over. "We should broadcast on all frequencies. Simple mathematical sequences first, then basic greeting messages in multiple Earth languages." "Make it happen," Miller agreed. "And let's inform Earth." Communications Officer Diane Bell sent the message back to Earth, but they were too far out. It would take nearly 2 days for their transmission to reach home, and just as long for any response. "We're on our own," Miller told his senior staff in the briefing room. "This is what we trained for. We represent all of humanity in this moment." The massive alien ship grew larger on their screens. It was unlike anything they had imagined. Not sleek or streamlined, but angular and covered with strange protrusions. 5 smaller vessels surrounded it in perfect formation. "They're not responding to any of our broadcasts," Bell reported after hours of trying. Wright looked concerned. "That could mean anything. Perhaps they communicate in ways we don't understand. Or they're cautious, or they don't care what we have to say," Miller finished her thought. The alien ship suddenly accelerated toward them. "Status red," Miller commanded. "Shields up." The Defiant wasn't built for battle. It carried minimal defensive capabilities, mainly designed to handle asteroid impacts or radiation bursts. "They're scanning us," Jones reported, his voice tight. "Very intensive scans. They're penetrating our shields like they're not even there." Wright was frantically reviewing data. "Captain, based on their ship design and formation, I think we might be dealing with a hierarchical society. The large ship is positioned like royalty with guards. If they're scanning us, they're assessing whether we're a threat or worthy of their attention." Before Miller could respond, the ship shuddered violently. "We're hit," shouted Chief Engineer Alan Martinez over the comms. "Some kind of energy weapon. Deck 3 is breached." Miller gripped his chair. "Evasive. Maneuvers. Return fire with warning shots only." The Defiant lurched as it tried to escape, but the alien ships were faster, surrounding them with practiced ease. "They're toying with us," Security Chief Greg Peterson growled. "Like a cat with a mouse." Another blast rocked the ship, more powerful than the first. Sparks flew from consoles across the bridge. "Shields failing," Jones called out. "Engine power dropping." Miller made a quick decision. "All power to engines. Plot a course back to Earth space. We need to warn home about what we found." Wright looked at him in alarm. "But Captain, we haven't established communication. If we run, they might see it as weakness or hostility." "If we stay, we die," Miller replied grimly. "And Earth never knows what happened." The Defiant turned and accelerated to its maximum speed. The alien ships pursued, continuing to fire seemingly calculated shots, not to destroy them immediately, but to damage and disable. "They're hurting us," Wright realized aloud. "These aren't random attacks. They're deliberately crippling certain systems." Miller understood what she meant. "They want to capture us?" Another hit and the lights flickered. Miller could hear screams from elsewhere in the ship. "Medical team to Deck 4, he ordered. "Martinez, we need more power." "I'm giving her all she's got, Captain," Martinez shouted back. "But we've lost 2 power couplings already." Jones suddenly sat up straighter at his console. "Captain, I'm detecting a spatial anomaly ahead. It looks like I think it's a natural wormhole. Miller didn't hesitate. Head straight for it. Sir, Jones protested, we have no idea where it leads. Anywhere is better than here right now. Full speed ahead. The Defiant shuddered as another alien blast hit their engines. Warning alarms blared across the ship. The wormhole loomed ahead, a swirling violet tear in the fabric of space. Brace for transit, Miller commanded. The ship plunged into the wormhole. The experience was nothing like the smooth travel they had imagined. It felt like being torn apart and put back together wrong. Every person on board screamed as their nerves fired with impossible signals. Then, just as suddenly, they were through. The Defiant emerged into normal space, systems failing and hull breached in multiple locations. Report, Miller called, wiping blood from a cut on his forehead. We're back in the solar system, Jones said in disbelief, checking his instruments. Just beyond Neptune's orbit, the wormhole, it sent us home. The aliens. No sign of pursuit, the wormhole collapsed behind us. Miller allowed himself one moment of relief before reality set in. Casualties? The report came in from medical. 17 crew members dead, 32 injured, some critically. The Defiant was limping, barely able to maintain life support. 3 days later, an Earth rescue vessel reached them. As the wounded were transferred and emergency repairs made, Miller met with Admiral George Carter via secure communication. It's worse than we thought, John, Carter said, his face grim on the screen. After analyzing your sensor data, we believe you encountered the Xeraxian Empire. The what? Miller asked. We've been keeping it quiet, but 6 months ago we captured a small alien scout ship that had crashed on Mars. The pilot died, but we recovered data. The Xeraxians control dozens of star systems. They believe all other species exist to serve them. Wright, standing beside Miller, paled. And we just led them straight to Earth. Carter nodded grimly. Their philosophy is simple: submit or be destroyed, and they've got the firepower to back it up. What do we do now? Miller asked. The only thing we can, Carter replied. Prepare for war. Back on Earth, as Miller watched the injured crew members being taken to hospitals, Commander Eric Davis approached him. His uniform was crisp, but his eyes were hollow. My wife was on deck 3, Davis said quietly. She didn't make it. Miller placed a hand on the man's shoulder. I'm sorry, Eric. Davis straightened his back. Don't be sorry, Captain, be ready. Because I've studied everything we have on these Xeraxians. They're coming for us all, and I'm going to make them regret the day they ever heard of humans. As if confirming his words, alarms began to sound across the base. Admiral Carter rushed toward them. We've detected multiple objects entering the solar system, he announced. It's them. They've found us faster than we expected. Miller, Wright, and Davis looked up at the sky. Somewhere up there, the first Xeraxian ships were already approaching, carrying their ultimatum: submit or be destroyed. They did not know that humans had a third option: fight. The message from the Xeraxian ships was clear and cold. It played on repeat across every screen on Earth. Primitive species of Sol system. We are the Xeraxian Empire, rulers of 1,000 worlds. Your existence has 2 paths forward: serve us or be destroyed. You have 30 Earth days to surrender your planet and resources. Any resistance will result in the complete annihilation of your species. The message ended with images of planets being bombarded from orbit. Entire cities turned to ash in seconds. UN Secretary Paul Bennett watched the message for the 20th time in the Emergency Council chamber. Representatives from every nation sat in stunned silence. Can we fight them? Asked the representative from Brazil. Admiral George Carter stepped forward. With what we have now? No. Their technology is centuries beyond ours. Then we surrender, said the French delegate, her voice shaking. Commander Eric Davis slammed his fist on the table. Never. All eyes turned to him. Davis had barely slept since losing his wife in the first contact incident. His eyes were red but determined. They expect us to surrender because that's what every other species has done, he continued. But humans aren't like the others. We evolved on a high-gravity world with thousands of predators. Our entire history is fighting against impossible odds. Fine words, said the Chinese representative, but words don't shoot down alien warships. Captain John Miller spoke up. Maybe not, but we have something they don't expect. Time. Miller pointed to the data from their encounter. The Zeraxians sent a small fleet because they expect an easy victory. They're arrogant. They've given us 30 days because they think it doesn't matter. Carter nodded. We use those 30 days. Every factory, every lab, every resource we have goes toward building our defense. Secretary Bennett looked unconvinced. 30 days to build a space fleet? Not a conventional fleet, said Lieutenant Lisa Wright, who had been quietly analyzing the Zeraxian message. We have the damaged Zeraxian scout ship from Mars and now sensor data from the Defiant. If we focus on understanding their technology, we might find a weakness. The vote was not unanimous, but it was decisive. Earth would resist. The next day, martial law was declared worldwide. Every scientist, engineer, and factory worker was redirected to the war effort. Underground facilities that had been used for research became shipyards. The Defiance data was shared with every lab on the planet. Chief Engineer Alan Martinez led the team examining the Zeraxian technologies. Their ships are powerful but inefficient, he explained to Admiral Carter during a progress briefing. They built for intimidation, not optimization. We can't match their firepower, but we might be able to outmaneuver them. Meanwhile, Commander Davis worked on tactics. He recruited pilots, soldiers, and strategists to form the core of Earth's first space defense force. Forget everything you know about conventional warfare, he told them. In space, there's no up or down, no terrain, no cover, except what we create. They trained in simulators built using data from the Defiance encounter. Again and again, they failed against the simulated Zeraxian forces. But each time they lasted a little longer, learned a little more. 20 days into their deadline, the first human warship was completed in a repurposed mining facility under the Pacific Ocean. The USS Indomitable wasn't large, but it incorporated everything they had learned. Its captain would be Susan Kelly, a former Navy commander with a reputation for unconventional thinking. She's not pretty, Kelly said as she inspected her new command, but she's ours. 4 more ships followed in the next 5 days. The Valiant, the Courageous, the Guardian, and the Relentless. Each incorporated improvements based on lessons learned from building the previous vessel. As the deadline approached, Secretary Bennett met with Lord Krex, the Zeraxian ambassador who had arrived to accept Earth's surrender. We require more time to prepare our world for the honor of joining your empire, Bennett told the alien. He had been saying some version of this at every meeting. Lord Krex was a tall, gray-skinned being with 4 eyes arranged vertically on his face. Your delays try the Emperor's patience, human. Your time ends tomorrow. Just 1 more week, Bennett pleaded, knowing every day was critical for the fleet. No more extensions, Krex said coldly. Tomorrow, you submit or burn. In a secret facility beneath the Gobi Desert, Admiral Carter addressed the captains and crews of Earth's 5 warships. Tomorrow the Zeraxians will demand our surrender. When we refuse, they will attack. They expect us to be defenseless. Their mistake. He looked at each captain in turn. Your ships will launch tonight and take position behind the moon. When the Zeraxians move to attack Earth, you will hit them from behind. Captain Kelly raised her hand. Sir, even with the advancements we've made, we're outnumbered and outgunned. Carter nodded. Yes, but they don't know that we know about them. They don't know that we've been preparing. And most importantly, they don't know what humans are capable of when our backs are against the wall. Commander Davis stepped forward. We've analyzed their battle formations from historical data in their scout ship. They fight like an ancient army. Rigid formations, predictable patterns. We'll fight like wolves. That night, Earth's small fleet launched in secret. The ships were smaller than their Zeraxian counterparts, but faster and more maneuverable. Each captain knew this might be a one-way mission. The next day, true to his word, Lord Krex arrived at the UN to accept Earth's surrender. Secretary Bennett kept him waiting for hours, then finally appeared. I speak for humanity, Bennett said, and our answer is no. Krex's 4 eyes blinked in surprise, then narrowed in anger. You have chosen extinction. He tapped a device on his wrist, presumably signaling his fleet to begin the attack. Bennett smiled. Perhaps, but not today. In orbit, the Xeraxian punitive fleet of 12 warships moved into attack formation above Earth. Their weapons powered up, targeting major cities first. They didn't bother with advanced scans of the area. Why would they need to? These primitives had no space combat capability. That's when Captain Kelly's voice came over all frequencies, broadcasting to both the Xeraxian fleet and Earth below. Attention Xeraxian vessels. This is Captain Susan Kelly of the USS Indomitable. You are trespassing in Earth space. Leave now, or face the consequences. The Xeraxian commander responded with laughter. One ship? You challenge us with one ship? As if on cue, the Indomitable emerged from behind the moon, followed by the other 4 vessels of humanity's fleet. Not one ship, Kelly replied. Just the first of many. Humanity stands. No fear, no retreat. And with that, Earth's first space battle began. Against all odds, humanity would not go quietly into the night. The space around Earth lit up with energy weapons as the Xeraxian ships opened fire. They expected a quick victory. They were wrong. Evasive pattern Delta, Captain Susan Kelly shouted as the Indomitable swerved to avoid the incoming blasts. The human ships scattered, moving in seemingly random patterns that confused the Xeraxian targeting systems. Kelly's tactical officer, Lieutenant Kate Brown, had studied the Defiant's sensor logs intensively. Their weapons take 3 seconds to recharge after firing, Captain, she reported. We can use that. Kelly nodded. All ships, attack pattern Wolfpack. Target the smallest Xeraxian vessel first. Unlike the Xeraxians' rigid formation, the 5 human ships moved like predators, darting in to fire, then retreating before the aliens could respond effectively. The Earth vessels seemed to communicate without using standard channels, making their movements impossible to predict. On the Xeraxian command ship, Fleet Commander Zork was growing frustrated. How are these primitives coordinating their attacks? He demanded. His second-in-command had no answer. Their communication jammers should have prevented any organized resistance, yet the human ships moved with perfect synchronization. What the Xeraxians didn't know was that Commander Eric Davis had developed a backup communication system based on light pulses, simple ancient Morse code that the aliens' jammers ignored completely. The battle moved toward Mars as the human ships drew the Xeraxians away from Earth. Captain Frank Russell's ship, the USS Courageous, took heavy damage, but continued fighting. We can't take another hit like that, Russell's engineer reported. Russell looked at his crew, men and women who had trained for less than a month for a battle they couldn't possibly win, yet no one showed fear. Get us closer to their flagship, Russell ordered. Sir? His pilot questioned. Just do it, Russell said firmly. He opened the ship-wide communication. All hands, prepare to abandon ship. Get to the escape pods. As the Courageous charged toward the massive Xeraxian flagship, Russell stayed at the helm. The escape pods launched, carrying his crew to safety. Near the Martian outpost, the Xeraxians, confused by this suicidal charge, concentrated their fire on the approaching vessel. At the last moment, Russell activated the self-destruct sequence. The explosion ripped through the Xeraxian flagship's shields, severely damaging its propulsion system. The massive vessel began to drift, its weapon systems offline. The Courageous is gone, Lieutenant Brown reported on the Indomitable, her voice tight with emotion. Captain Kelly allowed herself 1 second of grief before refocusing. Their sacrifice won't be in vain. All ships, concentrate fire on the damaged flagship. The remaining human vessels pressed their advantage, coordinating their attacks with precision. 2 more Xeraxian ships fell to the concentrated firepower of Earth's fleet. Fleet Commander Zork couldn't believe what was happening. His damaged flagship could barely maintain life support, and 3 of his ships had been destroyed by these supposedly primitive humans. Retreat, he finally ordered. Back to Xeraxian space. The remaining Xeraxian vessels turned and fled, leaving their crippled flagship behind. For a moment, silence filled the communication channels. Then cheers erupted across all 4 remaining human ships. Against impossible odds, they had won their first victory. On Earth, people who had been watching the battle through telescopes and the few cameras in orbit celebrated in the streets. News of Captain Russell's sacrifice spread quickly, and he became the first hero of the war. Admiral Carter didn't allow the celebration to last long. "They'll be back," he told the gathered military leaders. "And next time they'll bring a proper fleet." Commander Davis agreed. "The good news is we've learned their weaknesses. They're predictable, inflexible, and now we've captured their flagship." Teams of engineers and scientists boarded the damaged Xeraxian vessel. Chief Engineer Martinez led the group examining their technology. "Their weapons are powerful," he reported back, "but their tactics are ancient. They fight like they're still on the ground in neat rows and columns." Lieutenant Wright had a different focus. She interviewed the captured Xeraxian crew, trying to understand their culture and language. "They genuinely believe they're superior to all other forms of life," she explained during the debriefing. "Their entire society is built around this belief. They can't comprehend being defeated by lesser beings." News of the human victory traveled faster than the retreating Xeraxian ships. It reached the Imperial Palace on the Xeraxian homeworld days before the surviving vessels limped into orbit. Emperor Vorthak, the Eternal, was not pleased. In 10,000 years of expansion, no species had ever defeated a Xeraxian fleet. "These humans must be made an example of," he declared to his council. "I am appointing Grand Admiral Xylax to lead our response." The council chamber fell silent. Grand Admiral Xylax was the Empire's most decorated commander, responsible for subjugating dozens of worlds. "My Emperor honors me," Xylax said, stepping forward from the shadows. "I have studied the reports from the failed expedition. These humans are interesting, but they will break like all the others." On Earth, preparations continued with renewed energy. The captured Xeraxian technology accelerated human advancement by decades in just weeks. Dr. Olivia White, working with Chief Engineer Martinez, made the most significant breakthrough. "Their shield technology relies on predictable energy patterns," she explained to Admiral Carter. "If we modulate our weapons to match these patterns, we can penetrate their defenses much more effectively." Meanwhile, Captain Kelly and the other ship commanders trained new crews. The 5 original vessels were now joined by 15 more, hastily constructed in hidden facilities around the solar system. "We won't wait for them to come back," Admiral Carter announced during a strategy session. "We're taking the fight to them." Commander Davis revealed the plan. "Their supply lines are extended. They've conquered too many worlds too quickly. We'll hit them where they don't expect us, deep in their own territory." Secretary Bennett was skeptical. "That's incredibly risky." "So is waiting here to be annihilated," Captain Kelly countered. "They'll expect us to cower behind Earth's orbit praying for mercy. They don't understand humans at all." Far away, Grand Admiral Xylax prepared the largest invasion fleet in Xeraxian history. 200 warships gathered, enough firepower to reduce Earth's surface to molten slag. "These humans think they've won because of one small victory," Xylax told his commanders. "We will show them the full might of the Empire." What neither Xylax nor any Xeraxian could understand was that humans had been fighting against the odds for their entire existence. From the first primitive tribes facing massive predators to modern nations overcoming seemingly impossible challenges, humanity's greatest strength had always been its refusal to accept defeat. As Earth's new fleet prepared to launch its daring offensive, Captain Kelly addressed her crew. "They think they know what we're capable of. They have no idea. Today we show the galaxy what happens when you corner humanity. We don't cower, we fight back." The USS Defiance, Earth's newest and most advanced warship, moved silently through the darkness of space. Captain John Miller stood on the bridge, looking at the unfamiliar stars. They were deep in Xeraxian territory now, far from home. "Any sign we've been detected?" Miller asked his sensor officer. "No, sir. Dr. White's cloaking technology is working perfectly. To their sensors, we're just background radiation." Miller nodded. After their first victory, humanity had not waited for the Xeraxians to return. Instead, Admiral Carter had launched Operation Hornet's Nest, a daring plan to attack Zeraxian supply lines and outposts throughout their territory. The Defiance led a strike force of 5 ships, while Captain Kelly's Indomitable commanded a separate group elsewhere in enemy space. 10 more vessels defended Earth, though everyone knew they couldn't stop a determined Zeraxian assault. Earth's best hope was to cause so much disruption that the Zeraxians would reconsider the cost of conquest. "We're approaching the target," announced Lieutenant Ryan Cooper, the mission's intelligence officer. Zeraxian supply depot in orbit around the gas giant. According to our intel, it services at least 30 warships. Miller studied the massive structure on the view screen. It was heavily defended with automated weapon platforms and a small guard fleet. "All hands, battle stations," Miller ordered. "Lieutenant Wright, open a channel to the other ships." Lisa Wright, now serving as Miller's communications officer, connected him to the strike force. "Remember the plan," Miller told the other captains. "The Defiance will draw their attention. You hit the depot from the far side while they're distracted." "And if something goes wrong?" asked Captain Linda Ward of the USS Freedom. Miller smiled grimly. "Improvise. That's what humans do best." The Defiance dropped its cloak and accelerated toward the depot. Almost immediately, alarms began blaring on the Zeraxian facility. "They've spotted us," reported the tactical officer. "Defensive platforms powering up." "Let them see us," Miller said calmly. "Full speed ahead." The Defiance charged forward, its new weapons, based on captured Zeraxian technology but modified by human engineers, firing at the defensive platforms. 2 exploded immediately, creating a gap in the perimeter. "Zeraxian vessels moving to intercept," the sensor officer called out. 3 warships bearing 045. "Perfect," Miller said. "They're moving away from the depot's far side." The Zeraxian ships, confident in their superior firepower, moved in a perfect triangular formation. They had learned nothing from their previous defeat. "Evasive pattern Omega," Miller ordered as enemy fire streaked toward them. The Defiance twisted and turned, avoiding most of the blasts. Those that hit were absorbed by the improved shields Dr. White had developed. Meanwhile, the 4 other Earth ships approached the depot from behind. Their weapons targeted the facility's power cores and docking bays. "Sir, we're taking heavy fire," reported Miller's tactical officer as the bridge shook from a direct hit. "Maintain course. Keep their attention on us for 2 more minutes." On the depot's far side, explosions bloomed as the Earth ships launched their attack. The Zeraxian defenders, focused on the Defiance, realized too late that they'd been outmaneuvered. "Now," Miller commanded. "Full attack pattern. Target the lead Zeraxian ship." The Defiance stopped evading and turned directly toward the approaching enemy vessels. Its main cannon, a hybrid of human and Zeraxian technology, fired a concentrated energy beam that cut through the lead ship's shields like they weren't there. As the Zeraxian vessel exploded, the remaining 2 broke formation, suddenly uncertain. This wasn't supposed to happen. Humans were primitives, easy prey. "They're retreating," the sensor officer reported with surprise. "Let them go," Miller ordered. "They'll spread the word." The supply depot was in flames with secondary explosions, rippling across its structure. The 4 Earth ships rejoined the Defiance, having completed their attack run with minimal damage. "Mission accomplished," Miller told Admiral Carter over their secure quantum communication channel. "The depot is destroyed." Carter's face showed relief. "Good work." Captain Kelly's group reports similar success at their target. "Return to Rendezvous Point Delta for resupply." The strike force had been operating in enemy territory for 3 weeks now, hiding in nebulae and asteroid fields between attacks. They had hit 7 targets, each one further inside Zeraxian space than the last. Back on the Zeraxian homeworld, Grand Admiral Zilax was furious. Reports of human attacks were coming from across the Empire. These weren't the actions of a frightened species awaiting annihilation. These humans were fighting like cornered predators. "They're targeting our supply lines with precision," Zilax's intelligence officer reported. "Somehow they know exactly where to strike." What the Zeraxians didn't know was that their rigid hierarchy had created another weakness. Many of the species they had conquered over the centuries served unwillingly. When humans appeared offering alliance against their oppressors, some chose to help. One such ally was Krill, a member of the Vexer species. The Vexers had been among the first conquered by the Xeraxians 500 years earlier. Now they served as maintenance workers and low-level technicians throughout the Empire. The main fleet will depart in 3 days, Krill told Lieutenant Wright during a clandestine meeting on a remote trading outpost. 200 ships, headed for your solar system. Grand Admiral Zalax leads them personally. Wright transmitted this critical intelligence back to Earth using the quantum communicator they'd developed based on Xeraxian technology. Admiral Carter called an emergency meeting with Secretary Bennett and the other military leaders. 200 ships, Carter said grimly. More than we can handle even with our new technology. Vice Admiral Laura Hayes, who commanded Earth's defensive fleet, agreed. If they reach Earth orbit, we're finished. Commander Davis, who had been quiet until now, finally spoke. Then we don't let them reach Earth. What do you suggest? Bennett asked. Our entire fleet is only 50 ships. We choose the battlefield, Davis explained. Not Earth orbit, not Mars. We meet them at the edge of our solar system in the Oort cloud. Carter considered this. The comets and ice debris could provide cover and disrupt their formations. Exactly, Davis nodded. And we use everything we've learned about them. Their predictability, their rigid tactics, their belief in their own superiority. Dr. White, who had been invited to the meeting, spoke up. I've been working on something that might help. It's risky, but it could give us an edge. She explained her plan to create a virus that could disrupt the Xeraxian ship's communication systems. Based on what they'd learned from the captured flagship, their entire battle coordination relied on a central command structure. Without it, their rigid formations would fall apart. Do it, Carter ordered. We'll need every advantage. As Earth prepared for the coming battle, the strike forces continued their harassment of Xeraxian territory. Each successful mission boosted human morale and confused the enemy. After hitting a major shipyard, Captain Kelly received an unexpected transmission from a nearby star system. It came from a species called the Draleen, who had been conquered by the Xeraxians a century earlier. We have watched your attacks with great interest, their representative said. For the first time, someone fights back against the Empire. We wish to help. Similar messages came from other subjugated species. The Xeraxians had created an empire of fear, not loyalty. Now that humans had shown resistance was possible, others were finding their courage. As the massive Xeraxian fleet began its journey toward Earth, they did not realize they were facing not just humanity, but the first sparks of a galactic rebellion. Grand Admiral Zalax expected to find a cowering, primitive world awaiting execution. Instead, he would face the most determined resistance the Empire had ever encountered. The edge of the solar system was quiet. Billions of ice chunks and small comets floated in the vast darkness of the Oort cloud. Among them, hidden and waiting, was humanity's fleet. 50 ships against 200. The odds were terrible, but humans had faced worse throughout their history. Admiral Carter stood on the bridge of his flagship, the USS Determination. Around him, officers monitored their stations with quiet focus. Everyone knew what was at stake. Xeraxian fleet detected, announced the sensor officer. They've just entered the outer boundary of the Oort cloud. Carter nodded. Send the signal to all ships. Battle positions. Across the fleet, captains prepared. Their crews. On the Indomitable, Captain Susan Kelly addressed her people one last time. Today we fight not just for Earth, but for every species that has suffered under Xeraxian rule. Remember your training. Remember why we're here. No fear. No retreat. On the Defiance, Captain John Miller and Lieutenant Lisa Wright made final adjustments to their plan. Wright had worked with their alien allies to identify weaknesses in the Xeraxian command structure. Their entire fleet follows Grand Admiral Zalax's flagship, she explained. If we can disrupt his ability to command, their formation will fall apart. Commander Eric Davis led a special strike team on 5 small, fast vessels hidden among the AIMGI, larger comets. They carried Dr. White's communication virus but would need to get dangerously close to the Xeraxian command ship to deploy it. Enemy fleet approaching detection range, reported Carter's tactical officer. They're in standard Xeraxian battle formation, sphere with the command ship at the center. Carter took a deep breath. Begin Operation Avalanche. At his command, 70 large comets, secretly fitted with small engines over the past weeks, began moving toward the approaching Xeraxian fleet. To the enemy sensors, it would appear as a natural cometary shower, something to be avoided but not feared. Grand Admiral Xilax watched the approaching comets on his command ship's display. Adjust course to avoid the debris field, he ordered. His navigation officer complied, slightly altering their course. This small change was exactly what the humans had planned for. They've taken the bait, reported Carter's strategic officer. They're moving into position. As the Xeraxian fleet shifted to avoid the comets, they moved closer to a region where humanity had prepared another surprise. Hundreds of small mines, each containing a fraction of the explosive power used in Captain Russell's sacrifice, lay dormant. Activate the minefield, Carter ordered. The space around the Xeraxian fleet erupted with explosions. Ships on the outer edge of their formation were hit hardest, their shields flaring against multiple impacts. Now, Carter commanded. All ships attack pattern Omega! The human fleet emerged from hiding, weapons firing. Instead of engaging the enemy directly, they targeted the already damaged ships on the perimeter, then quickly retreated back into the cover of the Oort cloud's debris. Inside the Xeraxian formation, confusion spread. The attacks came from multiple directions at once, then disappeared before they could effectively return fire. Grand Admiral Xilax remained calm. He had expected resistance. Maintain formation, he ordered. Extend shields to maximum. They cannot hide forever. But the humans had no intention of hiding forever. Commander Davis and his strike team used the chaos to approach the center of the Xeraxian formation. Their small vessels, using improved cloaking technology, slipped between the larger enemy ships. We're in position, Davis reported to Admiral Carter. Ready to deploy the virus. Proceed, Carter ordered. All ships prepare for Phase 2. Davis's team activated Dr. White's virus, sending it directly into the Xeraxian command network. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then, one by one, ships throughout the enemy fleet began losing coordination with each other. On Xilax's command ship, warning signals flashed across control panels. What's happening? The Grand Admiral demanded. Our communication network is failing, his technology officer reported, panic in his voice. Ships are losing contact with Central Command. Xilax had never faced such a situation. Without the rigid hierarchy of command, Xeraxian captains were lost. Their training emphasized following orders, not independent thinking. All ships switched to backup communication systems, Xilax ordered, but the virus had already spread too far. Admiral Carter saw his opportunity. All ships full attack, target the command vessel. The human fleet converged on the center of the enemy formation. With their communication in chaos, the Xeraxian ships couldn't coordinate their defense. Some fired on the approaching humans, others held position in confusion, and a few even accidentally fired on each other. Captain Kelly's Indomitable led the charge straight for Grand Admiral Xilax's flagship. Activate shield modulators, she ordered. The technology developed by Dr. White allowed their shields to adapt to Xeraxian weapons, reducing damage by 70%. The Indomitable took heavy fire, but pushed through. Prepare boarding teams, Kelly commanded. It was a desperate plan, but humans had always excelled at desperation. As the human ships broke through to the center of the Xeraxian formation, Captain Miller's Defiance provided covering fire. Keep those defense ships busy, Miller ordered his weapons officer. The Indomitable needs time. Kelly's ship pulled alongside the massive Xeraxian flagship. Boarding pods launched, attaching to the enemy hull. Marine Sergeant Nicholas Grant led the first team to cut through the alien ship's hull. We're in, Grant reported as his team secured the entry point. Moving toward the bridge. Inside the flagship, Xilax received reports of the human boarding parties with disbelief. No species had ever dared to board a Xeraxian command vessel. Seal all compartments, he ordered. Kill the intruders. But the human Marines had trained for this using layouts provided by Krill and other allies. They moved efficiently through the ship, overcoming resistance with tactics the Xeraxians had never seen before. Outside, the battle continued to shift in humanity's favor. Without central coordination, the once mighty Xeraxian fleet fell into disarray. A third of their ships had been damaged or destroyed, while the nimble human vessels continued their hit-and-run attacks. On the flagship's bridge, Grand Admiral Xelax heard the sounds of fighting growing closer. For the first time in his long career, he felt fear. The doors to the bridge exploded inward. Through the smoke came Sergeant Grant and his Marines, followed by Captain Kelly. Grand Admiral Xelax, Kelly addressed the alien commander. Your fleet is defeated. Surrender now. Xelax looked at the human female in shock. This was impossible, unthinkable. Yet the evidence was before him. You cannot defeat the Empire, he insisted. We have conquered 1,000 worlds. And today, you've lost to just one, Kelly replied. Humanity doesn't surrender to bullies. With their Grand Admiral captured and their command structure in chaos, the remaining Xeraxian ships faced a choice. Continue fighting a losing battle or retreat. One by one, they chose retreat. Admiral Carter watched as the mighty invasion fleet scattered. Send the message to Earth, he ordered. Victory is ours. 3 days later, Grand Admiral Xelax stood before the United Nations Security Council. Secretary Bennett addressed the defeated commander. Your empire believed we would submit because you're stronger. You never understood that humans don't retreat from fear, we overcome it. These are our terms. The Empire will recognize Earth's independence and end all hostilities, or we will continue this fight until your entire empire falls. Xelax had seen what humans could accomplish against impossible odds. He had witnessed their ingenuity, their determination, their refusal to accept defeat. I accept your terms, he said finally. 1 month later, Earth launched a new kind of ship. The USS Unity was not a warship but a diplomatic vessel. Its mission, to establish peaceful relations with the many species oppressed by the Xeraxian Empire. Captain Miller and Lieutenant Wright stood on the observation deck, looking out at the stars that no longer seemed threatening. Do you think they'll ever understand what makes humans different? Wright asked. Miller shook his head. Maybe not. But they'll remember what happens when you corner us. No fear, no retreat. That's humanity's true strength.